danger. This is the greatest showman! He is floating on air now! He's going to send it back.
It's the Multicultural AFL Footy Show with Venessa, Harbir, Gabriel D'Angelo and George Gracios.
Hello and welcome to the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. I am Venessa, and on tonight's panel we have Harbir, Gabriel and Fouad from Adelaide. Hello guys.
Venessa.
The Easter weekend brought some good, some unexpected and some shocking results. On Thursday night at Marvel, Collingwood, after leading all night, went down by a point with a kick after the siren to the Brisbane Lions. No surprises as the Western Bulldogs won 128 points over North Melbourne, and the Adelaide Crows, led by a resurrected Tex Walker, prevailed by 10 points over the Gold Coast Suns. Saturday, however, delivered a couple of huge upsets, with the reigning premiers Richmond thoroughly decimated by 45 points by a young Sydney side, and an injury-depleted Essendon rose from the dead by dishing out a 75-point thrashing to St Kilda. You thought, Gabriel, maybe you can start with your precious Saints not turning up to play, and how was Essendon? How good was Essendon?
My thoughts about how St Kilda play? Oh, you don't want to know what I think.
What happened?
We'll just have to do some editing, I think. But look, St Kilda, putting on my St Kilda hat on as a supporter, there is absolutely no excuses for the way St Kilda played. They were absolutely, totally and utterly deplorable and embarrassing. With a side like North Melbourne, we can understand because they're doing a rebuild of a rebuild and they've got all these young players coming in. But with St Kilda, there's absolutely no room for error. They've got some good young players coming up, and they brought in some good experienced players into the team to what everybody thought was going to boost St Kilda into a position of maybe being fighting for the top four this season. The way they are playing so far has been totally and utterly in the wrong direction. They've been really, really bad.
And especially with Essendon losing the first two rounds, and so they were desperate to get somewhere, and to lose for St Kilda, I'm sorry to say that, by 75 points, that's pretty...
I think Essendon needed a spark, and then they got through Stringer. And that spark was lacking in St Kilda. There was no hunger, as you rightly said. And even one of the biggest fan of St Kilda, Shane Warne, even he couldn't see the effort. He had to come up and say that, guys, this is not good enough.
He could have played. He could have easily played in the side. And we've said a few times already that Fremantle Dockers are probably laughing their heads off because they sold St Kilda in Brad Hill a Datsun 120Y, and they paid for a Ferrari. They didn't get it. I mean,
but
really.
then again, you never know. Things might change, because we were talking the same about Bruce last year. You were like, oh yeah, we've given you Bruce. That's why we're giving you Bruce.
Well, look
at what he's done.
Enjoy the only goals he's going to score for the rest of the year, because that's it. Bruce has only scored 10 goals against North Melbourne, and that's it.
Just for your info, he scored 14 goals all last year, and he's already scored that many in 3 games. So things are getting better.
Oh wow. Gee. Wow. Have you written that down, everyone?
Yeah,
my God.
and what a win by Best of Bulldogs.
Wow. They were just amazing.
Just amazing. I think the way there's a lot of talk about Bulldogs being good this year, and with all the new players coming in and gelling well, and with the first two games being hard ones as well. And I think when you come against a team who's not doing that good, this is probably the message you want to give, and that as in, this is how you want to play. And I think they've done that. And I think things are looking good at this stage, but let's see what we got in the future.
But they're not looking good for North Melbourne. And let me tell you this, because in my first week here, I predicted that North Melbourne and Adelaide Crows will be the wooden spooners. I got one of them right at the moment. But let me tell you this, just quickly, I'll ask you a quick question. Now, if you see this year, the top three, Western Bulldogs, Sydney and Melbourne, right? Equal points, 12. So, but last year, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, Richmond. If you look at the Western Bulldogs, they were 7th last year, Sydney was 16, and Melbourne was 9th. So what happened to last year's first, second, and third, like Port Adelaide, Brisbane, and Richmond.
Yeah, I think.
I know it's too early.
Yeah.
And like
It's
we said,
different.
it's a marathon, not a sprint. So
That's true.
you know, anything can happen. Because this time last year, we were saying how badly Richmond were going, and then at the end of the year, they just dominated.
Correct.
I think now. I think the new game style is suiting these teams at the moment. I think they all, if you look at them, their midfield is very strong, and then the way forwards are performing in these teams is pretty good. And they, if you see even in Sydney, I think that's probably the benchmark at the moment.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Bulldogs are close, but I wouldn't say a benchmark. The way they are playing at the moment, that's like a benchmark. And look at their players; they're taking advantage, and they're putting the pressure on. And then we've got longer. Quarters as well, and then injury is that playing a big part this year as well in all the games.
But is it fair to say that North Melbourne are building?
Well, yeah, they're basically doing a rebuild of a rebuild because they had so many experienced players being shown the door and all these young guys. I mean, they're basically using the Auskick team, really. But yeah, North Melbourne.
But how long can the patient be? I mean, the fans can be patient.
Well, I have family members who are North Melbourne supporters, and they're extremely patient. Extremely
They're
patient.
waiting.
Yeah, underlined, highlighted in exclamation marks. They're extremely patient. But a team like, for example, like Sydney, the way they played against Richmond, they beat Richmond at their own game. I mean, they're just really exciting right now. And Fouad, your boys Adelaide, they did a very good job.
Well, they did actually, but it wasn't looking good in the first 10 minutes because they missed a setter from 15 metres and he hit the post. That would have put them into 21 points, zilch. But of course, they took it from the other side, kicked it, free kick. Who gets it? Tex Walker, 50 metres, scores, and the deficit is reduced to only 14 points, which is gettable. So they got away with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, a win's a win.
Exactly.
That's right.
And don't forget, Tex scored another 6, so he's on 17.
Yeah, Gold Coast did well too, I would say.
Yeah,
and,
they did all right.
Yeah, and the other game, Brisbane versus Collingwood, what a cracker.
Oh, it was one of the best games. I tell you what, the footy gods have smiled on Brisbane Lions. They restored the balance of justice after what happened last week.
True.
Yeah, exactly.
But that one is the one who's got away. He's gone away from Collingwood. Surely 45 seconds. The old game, we used to pass the ball, waste a few seconds, kick it out on the full. What do you think?
Well, yeah, the man marking should have been much tighter. I mean, the way that the Brisbane Lions players were sort of like slaloming and going pretty much unmarked. I mean, that should never have been a mark. He should never have been on his own.
Yeah,
That's
and the
one
worst
of
part
Collingwood
was
should have
the news are coming out that Scott Pendlebury wanted his player to do something which he just totally ignored. So that's not a good sign either.
Yeah, considering he's the captain.
Yeah, and as we I think touched a little bit before as well, Sydney, like they are just spot on at the moment. The way they're playing, it's just 100%.
Well, they beat Richmond at their own game. It was a fantastic performance from the Swans. Beating Richmond at the MCG, they didn't just squeak in. They didn't just have they really totally pretty much dismantled Richmond. I don't think Richmond were even expecting it.
Even without Buddy Franklin, right?
Yeah, without Buddy Franklin as well. So Richmond, Richmond can bounce back. Richmond, but Sydney, some good signs for the Swans.
Amazing performance.
Yeah.
In the rest of the round 3, West Coast were far too strong, beating Port Adelaide by 37 points. Carlton took a convincing 45-point victory over Fremantle, while Melbourne kept its undefeated run intact by outclassing the GWS Giants by 32 points from Manuka. And last Monday at the MCG, Geelong defeated Hawthorn by 5 points. What are your thoughts, Javier?
Well, I would say Port Adelaide, they had a good test, but they failed in that one miserably, I would say. They should have put at least a good performance, the way they played against the other teams, and it was nowhere to be seen.
But it was lost in the Harbir. It was lost in the midfield.
Yeah.
They've only got 3 marks out of 50 entries. If you look at West Coast, they had 57 entries, 17 marks, and their 3 forwards scored 8 goals out of that. So that's where they lost at the midfield. It'll be interesting to see if he plays with all the 4 tall guys in the midfield, because it didn't work for him last week.
Yeah.
And Port are a decent team. They'll bounce back, I'm sure.
Oh, we'll see. And Carlton, and finally they
Carlton,
gave, they gave what their fans been wanting from last year. This year,
Our director is forcing us to talk about Carlton.
Yeah.
So,
Fresh air.
but no, Carlton, good.
Yeah.
No, they had a fantastic win in all seriousness. They played really, really well.
Yeah.
Fremantle did show glimpses of what could happen this season because I don't think Fremantle are going to be totally easily to beat. But Carlton did do a very good job against Fremantle. That was one they had to win. They won it. They can move on and start to build on a decent campaign.
Yeah, and finally Cripps got into his mojo back,
Yeah.
and that was good. And also Harry Mackay, he's been a revolution. He's going to be a very good player in the coming time too, I would say. And Melbourne, I think they probably got a bit lucky as well with all the injuries that GWS had.
true.
I think GWS feel sorry for them. There was no sort of interchange left or anything like that, and still they had to keep on going.
It's funny how Melbourne was struggling last season, and young Simon Goodwin, he was on, he was in trouble.
Like
And,
said, yeah.
all of a sudden, Melbourne's 3 out of 3. So how good is that? Can they keep it? That's the question.
That's a question, yeah. And there was a lot of speculation that maybe Goodwin was going to be the first coach to be sacked this season. And now look at
Maybe
how
he'll
they're
be the
going.
first one to be signed.
yeah. Things have changed. Things have changed definitely. Yeah, and Geelong and Hawthorn, I think they lived up to their expectations.
Wow.
What a game we've had, and Geelong came on top, but Hawks were right there till the end.
Yeah, they should be proud of their performance, Hawthorn, because I think a lot of people were expecting that Geelong were going to win fairly comfortably.
Yes.
But with Hawthorn's young brigade coming in and with Clarkson, who I think is an absolutely amazing coach,
Yeah.
they really gave it to Geelong, and they were close. They almost got there.
And
But,
that, rivalry is going on.
Yeah, the rivalry,
on.
it's still alive. It's still well and
alive.
truly alive.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, and we'll be back with more after the break. You are with the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. Round 4 tonight. Sydney from the SCG take on Essendon, and tomorrow evening the big one as Port Adelaide in Adelaide go head-to-head with Richmond. Then on Saturday from Mars Stadium in Ballarat, the Western Bulldogs play Brisbane, while St Kilda take on the West Coast Eagles from Marvel. 4 huge games, boys. Who wants to open the discussion?
Well, I mean, Sydney, Essendon, SCG, that will be a great game. Big game for Sydney, especially 3-zip. They are running hot. Essendon, they won 1 game out of 3, but I find that very hard for Essendon to beat the young Sydney because they're hungry. They're playing for each other. They're very confident after 3 wins. So even if Sydney have a full team and playing in front of their fans, I find it very hard and difficult for Essendon.
And Errol Goulding, he's an absolute star. The way he's playing at the moment is this
True.
hidden gem that's just come out of
Yes.
nowhere. He's just playing beautifully. And they played last week without Buddy, and it was almost like they didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, so I think that as we mentioned before as well a little bit, this setting up a benchmark at the moment. You know, I was saying that Richmond is like unbeatable for us unless they want to get beaten. I think that's probably going to be happening. That's what we should be saying about Sydney too.
Yeah.
So Sydney, but Essendon generally play well at SCG, so they're not too off. But I think to me it was like hopefully they can keep on the spark that they had in 1 game. But I think Sydney, they would
And
be
as we
strong.
said before, full credit to Sydney, second on the ladder on percentage, 3 wins. They were number 16 on the ladder last year, so it's a full credit to the team.
Yeah, well, they've been playing really, really well. And you did mention briefly Richmond, and they're playing against Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. That's going to be a really, really good one because Port Adelaide, yes, they lost last week, but against West Coast, who I think West Coast are one of the top teams.
But don't forget, there's 2 teams are coming out of a loss.
Yes, exactly
Richmond
right.
and Port Adelaide. And Port Adelaide were top last year. To think that who's going to win Richmond or Port Adelaide, I think Port Adelaide, the only advantage they have is they're playing at home.
Yeah.
But Richmond is a top team as well because they've got a great forward.
Well,
Yeah, they're having few
Richmond's
injury
Richmond.
concerns. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
They're having few injury concerns, but we've seen that in the past. Richmond sort of
Yes.
comes on the top
Yeah.
anyway. Like, doesn't really matter who's
Yeah.
playing or
Doesn't
not.
matter where they play.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it's true.
definitely. And it's again, it's going to be another
Yeah.
good test for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I think Port Adelaide could actually win this one. Like, I mean, you did mention they're playing at home, but they do have some really good players at the moment. Like those little players that they were missing last season, I think that they found them with Fantasia and Alia. I think that Port Adelaide, I think they might be too good for
I
the
think,
Tigers this time around.
Yeah, and I think Bulldogs gonna really have to fight hard this time. It's not gonna be easy. Brisbane with that win over
Very,
Collingwood.
very tough game, yes.
They've got their mojo back. They've got they're upbeat at the moment, and especially the way they won.
The only
they're gonna
way
be
that
very happy.
Brisbane can win if they get a mark on the siren to score another.
Yeah.
That's a good
Nah,
point.
They're not.
Yeah.
Not this time around. I think once is enough. All right? I think the footy gods have balanced
Yeah.
everything out this time around. So I think it is going to be a good game. Both teams, good young players, but the Bulldogs midfield, they're just so
Strong.
so sumptuous at the moment. They're just too strong. I think that the Bulldogs, and plus they're pretty comfortable playing at Mars
Yes.
in Ballarat. So I think
Yes.
the Bulldogs should be too strong.
Yeah, same.
should be,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, same. And St Kilda and West Coast are. I don't know. Can we say much about it?
Well, it's a good buy for West Coast.
Well, you thoughts, Gabriel?
Well, we're coming to commercial. Okay, so we'll be right back. Well, look, St Kilda, they have to do better than what they've been doing these past few weeks. I mean, really. But against West Coast,
And I think against West Coast, that's a big ask.
it's a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Normally you would say that at Marvel, St Kilda
Yeah.
might hold an edge,
yeah.
but the way they play against Bulldogs, I don't think there's that edge even. But I would say there needs to be something done with St Kilda, and they need that spark or something like that. You never know if they can get a spark, and we've seen the teams who are more hungry,
Yes.
they are winning the games, and the pressure they are applying, and the other teams can't cope up with
And
that.
the experience of the West Coast, they've just got good players in every, every position, and I think they'll be too strong for.
Yeah, like in all seriousness, I do believe the same. Like you got Nick Natanui, who's just playing in such good footy. You got McGovern. You've got all these like good like zipping fast players that they've got, and I think that West Coast at the moment, they're sort of flying under the radar a little bit. I don't understand why no one's really talking about West Coast as much. I think that they're a really good chance of upsetting and could possibly win the premiership this season, but I think they're going to be just way too good for St Kilda.
Yeah, with all the games at Optus Stadium, I think they've got a huge advantage at this stage.
Yeah, and they're a team that can play anywhere, win anywhere, that type of side. So, yeah.
Let's see.
Good luck, St Kilda. Good luck. You're going to need it.
And St Kilda's going to need lots of it.
Yeah, and if you need players, I'm available, but I'm not promising much. And unfortunately, so are some of the St Kilda players right
but
now.
the way the league is going this year, there is surprises every week. Anything could happen. to be quite
surprise
honest.
me, St Kilda, please.
Well, on that note, stay with us as the panel returns on the other side of this break to discuss the do or die Collingwood GW Giants clash from the G. Welcome back as we continue with our previews of the weekend's 5 games, starting with the Collingwood Magpies playing host to the GWS Giants from the MCG, while the Gold Coast Suns at home play the Carlton Blues on Saturday night. Harbir, what are your thoughts of these games?
Well, I would say Collingwood versus GWS Giants, it's going to be a good game because I've got this feeling with GWS that it might come. They might come up with something. Although the amount of injuries they've got and everything, I think it's going to be very hard. But I think Toby Green is going to be captain, and he's going to want something out of the team. So they might be able to perform the way they performed against the other team in the last game. I think they were still, they had that spark, all those injuries as well, they were still keeping up. So they might put a good fight to Collingwood. But on the other hand, I would say Collingwood, this is their time to rejuvenate, come back, and they will, I believe. For the tipping purposes, I would say Collingwood.
I agree with you, Harbir. I mean, they have their share of the injuries, and but that's a dangerous game for Collingwood because they're coming from a very bad loss in a way, and they're probably going to be hungry, and I think they're going to be fighting for the points, and I think Collingwood.
Yeah, I think Collingwood at home with their home fans rabid for a victory. I think Collingwood should bounce back after the disappointment of losing against Brisbane at home. So I think they should be a little bit too strong for GWS. Definitely. We'll see what happens, but I think Collingwood should win that one comfortably. I don't really think GWS are going to give too much of a fight to Collingwood. But in the other game, I think Gold Coast and Carlton, that's going to be an interesting game. I think that Carlton, they're improving a lot, and I think they could give Gold Coast a bit of a run for their money.
They are, but I liked the way that young Gold Coast played against Adelaide.
Yeah.
They were unlucky. I mean, they missed a few easy chances, and they were hungry for the ball. They could surprise.
Well, they should.
But
They're
I
playing
think,
at home.
Gold Coast might not have the depth. I think with the injuries they are facing at the moment, that's the only concern. Otherwise, I would, if they had the player they've got, I would have said that they can easily beat Carlton. But with all those injuries, I think Carlton, they've got their tail up at the moment. I think they're going to be strong.
Yeah, I think they'll surprise too.
That's right.
Thank you, guys. Moving along to Sunday matches, North Melbourne meet the Adelaide Crows at Marvel Stadium. Melbourne go head-to-head with Geelong from the MCG, and over at Optus in Perth, Fremantle take on Hawthorn.
Well, I guess Adelaide Crows and North Melbourne, they're the two teams I predicted last time. So at least I got one right so far. But Adelaide will be too strong, I believe, for North Melbourne because they just... I'm not sure what's happening in there. We did say that they may be in rebuild, but they're losing by a big margin. So I can't see them beating. Even the game is away from Adelaide. They're not playing at home, but I believe it will be. And I don't want to say an easy win, but it should be a win for Adelaide.
Well, I think it should be an easy win for Adelaide because, like we said, North Melbourne are doing a rebuild of a rebuild, and after all the problems that are going on and off the field, North Melbourne, they're going to have to just be patient because there's going to be a lot of defeats this season, and this one is going to be one for Adelaide, and I think Tex Walker could really do some damage. He might even do, like what Josh Bruce did.
I reckon he'll increase his margin from 6 to probably 8 or 9 maybe.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, unless complacency factor comes into Adelaide, I don't think there's going to be any chance for North Melbourne there. And in the other games, I would say Melbourne versus Geelong, that's going to be a game to watch.
Yeah.
For me, that's going to be a cracker of a game. And with this win, I think Geelong feeling a bit more comfortable at MCG. Although I've got just this feeling that Melbourne might come on the top. Only thing stopping me is it's going to be 4-0, and I think it's going to be too hard. I think it's probably after 2005 they are saying that if it happens, it will be after 2005 when they go that much up. So I don't really see that happening, but I think Melbourne might come on top.
But I think you're right because Geelong's still missing Dangerfield, isn't he? He's got like the suspension. So and as we said before, Melbourne they are very confident and playing beautiful football, and I think they are a chance.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Melbourne, this is their moment where they can really show everyone in the AFL to be taken seriously. I mean, to beat Geelong at home, I think that they can definitely do it.
But not many people, not many teams can beat. Is the game played at the
MCG?
At the MCG, okay.
Well, I mean, Geelong are very comfortable at the MCG. They've played there a million times before, but Melbourne, I think that what you said, the confidence of them being on this winning streak and just having everything starting to click now. The young players and Petrarca is an absolute gun. Everything's starting to go into the right direction for Melbourne, and I think this, if they beat Geelong, which I think they will, this is just going to propel them even further. I think this is going to be the catalyst for a really, really good season for the D's.
Winnings give you more confidence all the time, so
absolutely.
you just believe in yourself, and I think that I can see them doing it. Yes.
Oh yeah, and with the Freo and Hawthorn game, I think Hawthorn did a good job against Geelong, don't get me wrong, but I think Freo at home, I think Freo might be a little bit too strong.
Yeah, to me they're both sort of at par with the conditions and everything. whoever's more hungry would win that game.
Yeah, first
The
goal
only-
wins maybe.
The only thing can change that if there is an upset this season.
Yeah.
Maybe Hawthorn can beat Freo.
Yeah, probably.
But that's the only time I can see it happening.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Well, which bring me to my footy tips, and this week I'm going to tip Sydney, Richmond, Western Bulldogs, West Coast Eagles, GWS Giants, Carlton, Adelaide Crows, Geelong, and Hawthorn.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. Well, that's all we have for this week. You can also watch us in Adelaide on Channel 44 Friday evenings, on Aurora Foxtel TV at midnight Saturday, and on the NEMBC's YouTube AFL. I am Venessa Gatica.
I'm Harbir Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
I'm Fouad and Drowse.
Thank you, and see you next week.